Yeah, so back in 2015, I was a mere 49, God, and I did this project at university that led me to collagen. I will not bore you with the project because it was too long, but I discovered collagen in my kitchen, and I know I didn't discover it because the Greeks had already discovered it many, many years ago, but I rediscovered it. And I wanted to bring this supplement to people en masse. I knew I had to work fast. I had absolutely no business experience whatsoever. But what I did have is I knew I wanted to put the consumer at the forefront of absolutely everything I did. So the Absolute, as they call themselves, I created a supplement in a sachet. Here we go, just one here. And we were the first to do that, liquid collagen. And I was told I had to be in retail. I was told I needed to get back in a big brand, but I was adamant I wanted to go direct to consumer. And that sounds a bit crazy if you think like 10 years ago, very few people going direct to consumer then. But I wanted a relationship with her because we've got 12% male, majority of our consumers are absolutely the women. I wanted a relationship with her. I wanted to make sure every single aspect of her journey, including the educational collagen, was absolutely perfect. And I knew I was the only one to do that. And so that's really how we kind of started. That was 2015. That was when we sort of discovered the collagen. 2017 was our official launch. And yeah, I mean, now the business model's copied absolutely everywhere. It's crazy, really. But subscription was all about making her life easy. I didn't want her to have to put anything else on a to-do list. So go to the post office waiting for this. And no obligation subscription was really important to me because at the time I'd been hooked into a couple of subscriptions that were wrong and you know, they legally bound me for 6 months. So all those things we did and the business models that's copied absolutely every time, it was all about putting her first.
It's really hard, I think, for us to remember, but back in 2017, the phrases, things that we now know as really common phrases like direct to consumer, unit economics, single product subscription brands were really not known at all. I was lucky enough to work with Maxine and Absolute Collagen from 2017 to 2020 on the early years of their journey. And let's just talk about some of that because Maxine was the first person I'd met who approached me. I was running a marketing agency specialising in e-commerce, using phrases like direct to consumer as a phrase, and very clear that this was a product that was going to be a subscription brand delivered through letterboxes. How did you know about that stuff?
As I say, I didn't. I just knew I wanted her journey to be perfect. And so all those things, all those sayings came around just by putting her at the forefront. So that's really how it happened. And yeah, I mean, I hounded Tash. I decided, again, this is absolutely crazy. Back then, there was only a few people doing direct-to-consumer digital marketing, or there's only a few people doing digital marketing. Can you believe that?
In e-commerce.
It was absolutely crazy. And I found Tash, and I'd stalked her a little bit on Google and things like that. And then I went to see her do a talk, and I said to her, "Are you taking on any more customers?" She said no. And I chased her with my yellow box, and we grew together. I mean, none of us knew what was going to happen. And you always say the metrics in our brand, Absolute Collagen. I remember you saying your brand's acting differently to every other brand I work with.
Yeah. So to give you an idea of the landscape, you know, Recharge. I mean, I don't know when you arrived in the UK. You guys will know, but these things were not commonplace. So we were working across a number of Shopify brands. Recharge had arrived in the UK, and we were somehow heard about Recharge. Thought we must install this. You wanted a subscription. None of us knew what a subscription brand would end up like. And I remember thinking, I said to you, the brand is behaving differently financially compared to other brands, which we all know is how subscription brands behave. Much of that stuff is commonplace now, we understand.
And I remember the subscription model, and people say, "Oh, well, why subscription?" And I just said, because to make her life easy. I don't want her to come onto the website and keep reordering. I want her to be able to know it's going to come whenever she wants, and she can cancel any time. And again, at the time, that felt like really hard work, explaining that to her. Why are you going to do that? And yet now it's so commonplace. And at the time, there were I think there was one other subscription company that we used first, and they couldn't meet our expectations that Recharge could, and that's why we switched. And I remember the day we switched to Recharge. Oh my God, I remember thinking, I think we had 3,000 customers at the time, was a phenomenal amount, and thinking, oh my God, what if we get this wrong? And Brad, my tech guy, I mean, the thing I'm really, really good at is employing great people who are far superior to me, because as you can see, I'm probably not your tech model, But it was about employing really, really great people who were great at what they do. And I remember Brad at the time, he's still a shareholder today, and that nervousness about switching over, and I think he just did a few at a time to make sure it all run perfectly. And Recharge were absolutely brilliant at that. Our 14-day or 28-day subscription, it was all quite new at the time. And partnering with somebody that was growing too, we grew together. And, I think the Recharge have always put the consumer, us, and the consumer first. And knowing what was coming down the line, and we were just saying about Oisin must have known, I think at the time when we were in Milan, he was saying he had 5 or 6 or something.
Well, I think he had about 10 visits. This is a Recharge story. So Oisin, the founder of Recharge, told us this story in Milan about how he'd had all these different businesses that hadn't worked out, and he had like 5 or 10 tech ideas, and he suddenly realised that the subscription one was going to be the one. So consumer behaviour was changing, the way people were shopping was changing, and Recharge was also at the forefront of that.
Yes. So I think it's fair to say that, Absolute Collagen's success was based on right time for the product. The consumer doesn't always know what they want. Nobody knew at that time they needed collagen, but it was the right time for collagen. It was the right business model, partnering with the right people, and all those things that seem really hard now. And it's not as easy to repeat that now, but for us at the time, everything was aligned. And yeah, it's been a fab journey.
So let's talk about the brand now. Probably the most well-known collagen brand in the country. Obviously, things are really changing again now. We have a movement towards. Well, talk me through how you're moving it digitally as channels shift and AI comes along.
Yeah, so AI, we're integrating AI across all our platforms, and it's about putting the consumer first again. It's about realizing what they want. It's streamlining all the processes, and we were just saying about AI, and we were saying that it's here. There's no doubt about that. And is it going to make sales better? Possibly, but the main benefit is going to be to the EBITDA, to your bottom line, in streamlining the processes. And I think, I'm not the AI person, obviously, they're just there. But it is something that we are looking at, and I know ChatGPT have integrated with, not Shopify yet. Who is it, George? Etsy in the US, yeah, and so they're now talking to Shopify about partnering with Shopify, meaning that you'll go onto ChatGPT and you'll be able to buy products, which actually is, we should be able to. So it's about looking forward thinking and making sure all those processes are in place.
And how important is it to you, bearing in mind Absolute Collagen was built very innovatively at the time, to be innovative now? How does that sit within the brand, like to lead?
I think you've got to. I think if you don't, you're gone. I think you have to be forward thinking. You have to be part of every movement that comes forward. Not everything, every tech stack is going to be successful, but I think you have to be part of it. And even the platforms, we were talking about how many platforms you need to be on now digitally. There's so many, and sometimes you don't know which one's going to work for you, but you have to try them all.
So coming on to personalisation and community and her, it's really interesting because those of us in digital marketing talk about personalisation, all this stuff. Maxine sees as the consumer, but we're essentially talking about the same thing. Yeah. So talk about that now and how you look after the consumer now. Obviously, you built a very early community before the word community was even a thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We were the first move on the community, really, and it seems bizarre now that is kind of a business model that most people would die for and strive for. And that was really just how our community was built. It was literally by putting one person on social media, who's still with us today, our community manager, and saying, I do not want any customer, any Absoluter to be unheard. Whatever question she's got, I was getting busier, so I couldn't answer everything. I want her responded to. And we do that across all platforms now. Our community, our social media community is a private, you have to be invited into it. We do get questioned a lot. It's probably one of our biggest selling tools, and we should probably make it public, but that's where she feels safe, and that's what she wants. She wants it to be private, and so that's really important to us. Community, again, is, innovation with products. We speak to our absoluters a lot. We've got hundreds of thousands of absoluters. They're always on emails, and we survey them a lot about what products they want. They don't always know what products they want, but they know what their issues are, and keeping that open. And I think that's why, tech is absolutely fundamentally, important, but you still have to have that hands-on. You still have to have the contact. And I see lots of businesses coming in, running businesses from a spreadsheet. Oh, that's a really good business model. Copy that, run it from a spreadsheet, run it from our bedroom, off we go. And that will take you to a certain point. But you need that personalization. You need that intimacy almost with your consumer. And that's how you build a brand. And it's not just a product, it's a brand. And that is how we innovate our MPD. We've got a few MPD coming up soon, and that all sits alongside what we're doing. Next year, we've got absolutely a new supplement that we are absolutely so excited about, and you just have to keep innovating. Again, she doesn't know she needs that product. It's really interesting.